to go over the major portion of Project 1, which is the definition, infographic, and justification memo. So it's really important that you take a look at the instructions for Project 1. What you're going to notice is out of the 150 points for this assignment, 80 of these points are these two short, smaller documents. So I'm going to go over them in a little bit of detail just to make sure everyone understands what they're doing. So if you haven't already, please pause this video, go and pull up the instruction sheet so that you're able to pause the video and look at the instruction sheet as we go. Please be sure that you're taking notes and that you're carefully paying attention to what I'm telling you needs to happen for this particular assignment. So the requirements for the infographic are to create an extended definition of technical writing and present it in infographic form for an audience of students in your major career field. So for this, you are going to specifically be looking at the kind of technical writing done in your own major or your own career field. If you know what kind of a career you're going into, you should do that. If you just have kind of a major like healthcare or some kind of a general idea where you're going, you should do that. So in order to do this, make sure that you complete the audience analysis because you need to figure out what students in your major or career field might already know, believe, or think about the kind of writing that they will do in that field. Next, you have to find 3 appropriate sources to support your definition. I recommend that you look at a combination of PGCC database sources. You could use general internet sources, but make sure that they are highly appropriate. So something like a professional organization in your field might be a great place to start. But a random blog post or somebody's random website would be a poor choice. You could also think about interviewing people that you know who might work in those fields to ask about the kind of technical writing done in the fields. So the other thing that you're going to be doing is using a graphic design program like Canva to create the illustration or the infographic. Most of these graphic design programs are pretty simple to use. A lot of them have templates that you can choose from. You're not going to be really graded on the design in the extent that I don't expect you to be a graphic designer, but you will be graded on readability, on is it just kind of a messy, difficult to follow design? Does it use white space? Are you putting information about any sort of graphics next to the graphic? So are you using those really basic design principles from our textbook? And then you need to use at least 3 extensions. So if you're looking at this going, I don't know what that means, I don't know what an extension is, you need to pause this video. You need to go back to chapter 10 in our textbook, and you need to reread the chapter on definitions because this is all going to be very confusing if you haven't learned the information about definitions and descriptions in technical writing. So an extended definition, as our textbook says, is a more detailed explanation of an object, process, or an idea. It usually starts with a sentence level definition. And remember that sentence level definition puts a term, object, process, or idea in a category of similar things and then differentiates them from that. So technical writing is a type of writing that is used in the science and technical fields, would be an example of a sentence definition. You're going to make your sentence definition specific to your major or your career goals. Then you're going to elaborate that sentence definition using extenders. And there are 8 different extenders listed in our textbook with descriptions. Again, if you don't remember offhand what these things are, please pause this video, go back and read the textbook. But graphic examples, principles of operation, compare and contrast, analogy, negation, and etymology are all examples of ways you can extend a definition. You are going to choose 3. So again, you need to make sure you have 3 appropriate sources because you're going to cite those, and at least 3 extensions. You want to choose the extensions and definitions that are the most appropriate. So let's talk about the process that you should be going through to create your infographic. What you absolutely should not do is open up a desktop publishing program and start plopping things into a file. You need to start by planning. First of all, you need research. You need to figure out what types of writing and technical communication professionals in your field are required to do. Are you doing lab reports? Do you have to write email correspondence? Are you expected to write proposals, or are you expected to write sets of instructions and procedures? What do people do in your field? Use library sources, interviews, or appropriate internet sources to figure that out. Then you need to decide on extenders. Do not just go with the easy ones. It's super easy to stick a picture in your infographic, but if your picture doesn't actually help your audience in some way better understand the definition, then that extender is not effective. So think about what information is most effective for your specific audience. And again, you need to think specifically about students in your career field. So are they expecting to do writing? If they're not, then you need to kind of maybe give them examples of things that they might have to write to prove to them that, yeah, technical writing is something you're going to have to do. Once you have the content, then you can focus on the design. You should start your infographic somewhere at the top with the term itself and then the sentence definition. Organize your extensions in order of interest and importance. Remember that when people read, they read top to bottom, left to right. The most important information should be in the biggest, boldest font. It should be at the top. It should be to the left. So use those really basic design principles that are in our textbook in order to organize. I really recommend sketching something out before you get into a graphic design program. Consider graphics and visual aids that are appropriate and effective. If they don't add something to your infographic, they probably should not be there. Any sort of graphic or visual aid should not be decorative. So you don't need a picture of a little computerized pen or something if that doesn't actually add information to your presentation. So make sure that you're using a desktop publishing app or a desktop publishing site like Canva to design. If you're trying to do this design in Microsoft Word, it's really difficult because Microsoft Word is made to be linear text. It's not made to be kind of a page that you can manipulate. If you want to use Microsoft products, Publisher is much better, but I really recommend you use Canvas and save it as a PDF. Here's an image of what Canva looks like. There are all these options, including text, lots of clip art, lots of other information. And then you can manipulate it in many, many different ways. Again, it comes with a lot of different templates that you can use. Be sure that you save it as a PDF. If you save it as any other kind of file, I might not be able to view it. Once you have your infographic done and finalized, you have to write a justification memo. And this is the part that most students have a lot of trouble on because you've probably not had a lot of opportunities or requirements to justify your work. But the justification memo is a persuasive document. This is where you're going to persuade me that you know what you're doing and that you should get an A on this project. You have to justify the choices you made in both content, so that means what you wrote, and also how you designed your infographic. This memo is going to serve as a cover letter or cover document to the infographic, which means that somewhere in the memo you need to say that the infographic is attached. Be sure that in your memo you describe how parts of your definition are both appropriate and effective. That's where you're going to talk about those 3 extenders you chose. You're going to explain the choices you made in graphics and design. Why did you pick the colors you picked? Why did you pick the layout you picked? Why do you think that this will be helpful? Why did you highlight the bold-faced words that you highlighted? Why did you pick the headings that you picked? Always relate it, again, to your assigned audience. And again, identify the infographic as an attachment to the memo. Remember, this has to be a persuasive document. You are proving that you understand basic skills of audience analysis, document design, tech writing style, and definition. Once you've kind of planned your justification, you want to draft it. Make sure you're really explaining how you met your audience's needs. Why is your audience different than a general audience? Use that audience analysis that you did for this assignment to go back to that worksheet and pull out information about what your audience knows, believes, or expects. And then make sure that you explain how your infographic is a good example of an extended definition. That's what this assignment is an extended definition. So make sure that you explain how you've used extenders, how you've created the sentence level document. This justification memo should be a good, solid piece of writing. If you give me 3 sentences, you're probably not making a very cohesive argument. Finally, design and finalize your justification memo. Remember, this is a memo. It is not an essay. It should be single-spaced with a clear subject line. It should have an opening, a body, and a closing. It should not have a salutation or a signature because it is not an email. Make sure that you're using headings and subheadings for effective formatting. You should be highlighting the most important information. Think about if you have a distracted or uninterested audience, how can you get their eye to go to the most important information on the page? How can you make your content accessible? And then remember, we don't have exams in this class. This justification memo is kind of the equivalent of an exam. You are demonstrating that you have mastered skills and concepts in technical writing style. You understand how to write technical definitions. You have basic design effectiveness. Again, this isn't a graphic design class. I'm not necessarily grading on like how amazing and beautiful your design is, but does it work? Is it effective? And then most of all, have you paid attention to your audience's needs? So if you have any questions, if you are confused at all, make sure you're using office hours, make sure you're using the Writing Center tutoring, or email me for help before you turn this in.